Okay, welcome back to Hindustan Astrology. I'm Katya, and today I have a very special guest, my friend Casey Scott of Gold Star Astrology. Thank you so much, Casey, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So Casey and I have been Instagram friends for quite a few months now, and we find we have a lot of the similar belief systems and ideas about astrology. And Casey has been a professional, practicing astrologer for 5 years now. He got his certification from Sam Jeppy from the American College. I'm sorry.
It's the American Academy of Vedic Art and Science.
There you go. Yes, Sam Jeppy School. Yeah. And so he's been, as I said, practicing for 5 years. So why don't you tell us a little bit about like what got you into astrology? What do you do besides astrology, that kind of thing?
Well, my background is engineering and architecture, and I didn't have any real background in astrology at all. And around 2014, 2013, I was kind of at a point in my life where I was looking for something to kind of improve my life and work on some emotional things. And I came across a Facebook group where there's all different people like hypnotists and NLP, and one of the people in this group was a Vedic astrologer. And I had no idea what it was and just was curious and reached out to him. And so he gave me a reading, and, here I am with this, engineering background, and didn't really even know what all 12 signs were at that point. Like I was just writing down different things he said, because he was in India and an Indian guy, and was just like firing off these things to me. And I was just frantically writing on a piece of paper, and didn't even have a birth chart or anything that he gave me. He was just going, just real mechanically firing off these weird things and predictions. And I was just like, what is this guy like? I was like, did he stalk me on Facebook? How could he know this about me? And just, blew my mind, right? And so ever since that day, it just activated this curiosity, like, what is this? I need to know how it works. And so I started off like most Vedic astrology students do, is, where do you even start, right? So just started Googling and YouTube videos and books, and the YouTube videos is how I eventually found Sam, and I really liked his videos and how he explained things, and ended up signing up for his certification course. And the way he kind of explains things as concepts and how it works for me, because I like to know how it works more than just memorize this list of this planet and this sign does that, and I want to know why. Well, why is it that? And so that is, resonated with me, and that's why I chose him as my teacher.
Right. Now, what is your personal website?
My personal website is gsastrology.com.
Yes. And you can book readings with him there. And, it's very reasonable, and it's a very easy to use website. So
thank you. Yes.
Welcome. And I got a reading from him. It was wonderful. So I highly recommend him.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the topic of today's discussion is comets.
Yes.
And this is something that is not discussed very much in Vedic astrology. It's more discussed in Western astrology. And he and I thought this would be a great topic, because when it entered, when it was visible in our atmosphere, was in sidereal Cancer. And it was a very sensitive point in my chart, and I had some things happen. And Casey came along and was able to say, oh, well, this is why this is happening. And my mind just went poof, because like I said, nobody in Vedic astrology talks about this. And he pulled up the Brihat
Samhita.
Yeah,
it was written by Varamahira, who was back in 400, 500 AD. So it was the
So
Dark
this
Ages.
text is very old. So maybe you could tell us a little bit of the history about this text and the rishi who wrote it.
Yeah, Varamahira was an astrologer in the Dark Ages. You know, this is a time in our history where, you know, there was wars and it was just a crazy time to be alive. But we didn't really have a person and texts from anywhere between the Vedas and where Parashara wrote his texts. And this whole time is a big chunk of time that our Indian texts about astrology were missing. And so Varamahira kind of reestablished the Vedic astrology as, you know, he had contact with the lineage and all the teachings and knew how to present it in a what they call a Brahmin way, where it was taught in the proper order and from a teacher. And so he kind of like did a renaissance of Vedic astrology at that time. And so Brihat Samhita was one of the texts that he wrote. And in that text, he talks about comets. And literally, when you're looking up Vedic astrology comets, you find nothing. Like, who's talking about these things? Because, you know, it's this thing in the sky. I'm like, okay, so how do I interpret this, right? And so I'm looking and looking, and nobody's talking about it. And so luckily we have Google, right? That we just Google, and then up pops a chapter on Brihat Samhita on comets, and it's like, whew, thank goodness there's something. You know, thank you, India, for having such a huge long lineage that at some point somebody who is a, you know, intelligent, educated person with a connection to the history wrote something about it to help us, you know, 1,500 years down the line, figure out what we're talking about.
Because in Europe they were talking about it, you know,
Yeah.
all of the royal court astronomers, astrologers, they were one, you know, at that time. They were all paying attention to it because they knew that it usually predicted the downfall of political or spiritual leaders.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, if you even read the Bible, the Babylonians would they followed a comet to find baby Jesus, and like, okay, where's the new leader? And nobody knew what they were talking about, right? So it's something prominent, and it's what I read is from an article in Hinduism Today, is it's just they represent the principle of uncertainty, right? Because they are objects that appear at irregular time frames and can appear out of nowhere from anywhere, right? So it's just that the fact that that's how they come into our experience shows that it just can come out of left field, right? We don't know when, we don't know where, how bright it'll be, how long it'll last. We don't know any of that.
Right.
So
yeah, out of left field. And actually, Casey and I discussed this before, and we'd like to dedicate this people to the people of Lebanon because of the recent explosion that happened. And, you know, we both feel pretty helpless and, you know, being able to do something about it. But what we can do is give our 2 cents about astrology and maybe give them the bigger picture so that they can understand what's going on. I have several friends that live there. When I was a belly dancer, I was a Lebanese style belly dancer. So the people of Detroit really took me under their wing. There's a large, you know, Lebanese community up there. And so I feel very close to them. And when this explosion happened on Tuesday, my heart I felt like somebody punched me in the stomach, you know.
yeah,
and
you watch the footage and it's disturbing. Yeah, it's like, wow, crazy.
You know, and the thing is that, you know, we here in America, we're, you know, complaining about the pandemic and all this stuff happening. But you know what? I'm sorry, we have nothing to complain about right now, not compared to what they're going through. And this really puts things in perspective and makes you grateful for what we have, even though things aren't perfect right now. It's nothing compared to what they're experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to first look at the text, and I'm just going to read through everything. And then we're going to talk about Comet Neowise, what it meant. We're going to look at the astrology charts of it. And then we're going to look at the explosion in Lebanon on the 4th and compare it to two of their most important birth dates. They have several, but the one that they recognize as the Lebanese Independence Day, and then also the day of their constitution. So we'll take a look at that and compare it to the day of the explosion and just talk about what's going on. So
Okay.
let's go ahead and start the screen share of this. All right, so we have the Brihat Samhita by N. Chidambaram, E.R., from 1884. And it's chapter 11 of this book on comets. And in Vedic astrology, comets are also considered Ketu. Ketu is the south node of the moon, but it's a shadow point. And so this was news to me. I did not know that comets were also considered Ketu. So
Yeah, the word K2 and the symbolism of K2 is a flag. And so if you think of a comet, it's kind of like a star with a flag flying on it, right? That's just to kind of put that into perspective.
Exactly. So here's the link where you can get the book, exoticindiaart.com. Just, pause the video and write that down. I can also put it down in the comments as well, so that
That's a good idea.
Yeah, go ahead and get it. So this is considered in the realm of, Hinduism, Jyotisha, obviously. This page, or several pages, describes comets, Ketu, which is the 11th chapter of the English translation of the Brihat Samhita. This work, written by Varaham Ihira in the 6th century, is classified as Jyotisha literature, also known as Indian astronomy. It contains, however, also content regarding astrology, palmistry, agriculture, gardening, perfumes, medicines, and other various encyclopedic topics. And this is the cover of it.
Yeah, Varamahira's big thing was to get us in contact with the language of nature, right? However that presented itself.
Wonderful. I need to get a copy of this, my library. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to read through these without commenting, and then we will add this to the transit analysis that we do. So note on Ketu, this term is defined by the author in stanza 3 and is made to include comets, meteors, falling stars, solar and lunar spots, and the like luminous bodies. So number 1, having examined the treatises of Garga, Parashara, Asita, Devala, and many others on Ketus, I now proceed to give a clear account of the same. And the reappearance or disappearance of the Ketus is not subject to astronomical calculations. The Ketus are of 3 kinds: celestial, ethereal, and terrestrial. Ketus are luminous appearances resembling fire, but without the power to consume objects. The glowworm, certain phosphorescent appearances, gems, precious stones, and the like accepted. Sorry.
So I'll just stop you there. It's like luminous appearances resembling fire, but without the power to consume objects. That's just an important thing that I wanted to highlight.
Yes, absolutely. And that's, K2, as we think of K2 as the south node of the moon, I mean, that describes it perfectly, but this just takes that definition and expands it, includes all this other stuff that most people don't talk about.
Right. Yeah.
The ethereal Ketus appear in flagstaffs, instruments of war, houses, trees, horses, elephants, and the like. The celestial Ketus appear in stellar regions, and the terrestrial ones appear in pits and low grounds in the surface of the earth.
Sorry, another interruption.
Yeah, no, please. I want you to ad-lib, because this is, this is a discussion between us. So please.
The reason why K2 is the flagstaff is, like, think of when you defeat your enemy, you conquer your enemy, you conquer the territory. What you do is you plant down the flag of your conquered territory. And that's what K2 represents in our life, is the lifetimes that the karma that we've already conquered, right?
There we go. Yes.
So just to kind of, for everybody who is confused about what K2 really is, it's that past experience that we get through past lives, but also is deposited in our childhood of the innate talents, innate skills, things that we just, the way I've got planets connected to K2, and when, like astrology, for example, it's like I'm remembering rather than learning it for the first time. That's how it feels like for me.
Precisely. Very well said. Yeah, and a K2, in a chart it doesn't necessarily mean that you've mastered that thing, but it means that you have experience in past lives with that. So it feels very familiar to you. Yeah.
Right.
Number 5, some writers say that the K2s are 101 in number. Others say that they are 1,000 in number. Narada says that there is but one K2, which appears in various shapes at various times.
That's an interesting statement, don't you think?
Yes.
There's only one. It's just all over the place.
Right. It's all connected.
Yeah.
Whether there is one K2 or many, the effects to be described are various, and these effects depend on their reappearance or disappearance at particular times and places, their positions, the heavenly bodies with which they might appear to be in contact, and on their colors.
So that's an important thing, right? We're talking about what do we want to pay attention to with the comet. We want to pay attention to when and where it took place, where it appeared, where it disappeared, their positions. How we measure it in Vedic astrology is in the background stars, right? We measure it from there. And then the heavenly bodies which they may appear to be in contact. So that could be a planet, and that could just be a nakshatra, like that he's saying. If it obscures one of the nakshatras, you have to be specially pay attention to that.
Right. And their colors.
And their colors, yeah.
Tell us what kind of gases that they're composed of.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, so number 7. The effects will last for as many months as the number of days during which the K2s continue to be visible. If visible for months, the effect will last for years. The effects will commence after 3 weeks from such appearances. So if I understand this correctly, 3 weeks after it disappears is when it starts to take effect.
That's what I was wondering about, and obviously you can't ask them. Is like, is it 3 weeks from when you first see it, or is it 3 weeks from you can't see it anymore? That's a good question.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, considering when Neowise was not visible anymore, it stopped being visible on August 1st, correct?
Some say that it's there if, like, you were in really dark skies and really good eyes, you could still see it.
Now,
for the majority of people, we couldn't see it after like the 23rd or 24th of July. And
so that would fall into the disappearance, because all astrology is from our perspective on Earth. It's from how we see the sky. So I'm going to go with it's when we stopped seeing it, rather than when it technically left our atmosphere. And the explosion in Lebanon happened, I would say, 2.5 weeks after. So that, I think this is going to be the first event of the effects of this comet, is the way I see it. Okay. Number 8. Generally, if the luminous body or comet be small, clear, glossy, straight, transient, white, and visible, either immediately after their appearance or sometime afterwards, there will be health and happiness in the land. If it be the opposite of these, or of the shape of the rainbow, or with 2 or 3 tails, mankind will not be happy.
So what he's saying there is, if it's small, straight, and just zooms on past without much fuss or muss, it's probably going to be a good omen, right? But if it, like we discovered it in March and it didn't appear till July, right? And it lasted for a while. It has a curve to it, right? That's what he says, the shape of the rainbow. That means if it's not a perfectly straight tail, it's curved.
Mhm.
That is, and there's multiple tails, it's not a great omen.
Right. And we know that Neowise had two tails, so it
It
falls
had two tails.
into the second category,
Yes,
unfortunately.
unfortunately, yes.
Number 10, the K2s are comets that resemble garlands, gems, and gold are named Kirana K2s and are 25 in number. They have tails and appear in the east and in the west. They are the sons of the sun, and when they appear, princes will begin to be at strife.
Now, this is what I have Neowise classified as, just
Yes.
in my notes, yes.
Yeah, because the colors were like a magenta, a bluish magenta color, and a gold color. So
Right,
this
the main dust tail was golden, and so you would consider it a golden. So
right,
the sons of the sun, right? And when they
right.
appear, princes will be at strife, which makes you think that, oh no, there's a
And
possibility of some tension. Yeah,
right. And at the time, I mean, when he wrote this, princes, he was saying political leaders.
right. Yeah,
Because, you know, back then, the royalty of whatever country was in charge. There wasn't a separate democratic
yeah,
branch of
right.
people. So we're talking political leaders here.
Princes are the, yeah, politics.
Yes. Number 11, the K2s that are of the color of the parrot, of fire, of Brandujivica flower, or of lac or of blood are the sons of Agni or fire and appear
So
in the
that's a
south.
magenta-ish color, yeah.
Right. They are 25 in number, and when they appear, mankind will be afflicted with fears. Well, that's definitely what's happening right now, right? I mean, we've got this pandemic going on, and the comet just seems to exacerbate it.
Yeah.
Number 12, the K2s or comets whose tails are bent and which are of sharp rays and black are the sons of Yama. And Yama is the god of death in the Vedas. They are 25 in number. They appear in the south. When they appear, there will be deaths in the land.
So the sharp rays in black makes me think that that's the kind of K2 that is like a sunspot that you would look like. Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't necessarily apply to Neowise.
Doesn't apply, no.
Right. 13. The K2s are comets that appear like a mirror, are round in shape without tails, but with rays and looking like oil or water, are the sons of earth. They are 23 in number and appear in the northeast. When they appear, mankind will be afflicted with fear and hunger. And this
I couldn't wrap my mind around what that one looks like.
Appear like a mirror or round in shape without tails. Well, to me, that's like a meteor.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, let's face it, if a meteor hits and crashes in Earth, there's going to be a major disruption if there's a large population. And yeah, they're going to have hunger because their crops are, you know, the Earth will be hit and the crops will suffer.
Yeah.
14. The K2s are comets that appear bright like the moon, silver, snow, white jasmine, and the white water lily are the sons of the moon. They appear in the north and are in number. When they appear, mankind will be happy. Well, unfortunately, we didn't get that this time.
We didn't. But hey, there's one comet that has a positive omen. Yeah, so that's good.
Number 15. A single comet possessing 3 tails and 3 colors is called Brahmadanda, born of the Creator. It appears anywhere. When it appears, the world will come to an end. Oh, good Lord. Well, I'm glad we didn't have 3 tails.
Yeah.
So this is not the apocalypse, you guys. This is not the revelation, okay? We have 2, and it's the son of the sun. Okay.
The good news is it could be worse, yeah.
Exactly. 16. Thus have been stated briefly 101 K2s, and we will now proceed to state clearly the 1,000 K2s already referred to. 17. The comets that appear in the north and the northeast are 84 in number. They are the sons of Venus. They have large, white, and shining discs, and when they appear, mankind will not be happy. The comets that appear glossy with rays and double-tailed are 60 in number. They are the sons of Saturn. They appear anywhere and are named Kanaka Ketus. When they appear, mankind will feel very miserable. Number 19, the comets which are white, of single disk, without tails, and glossy are named Vikaka Ketus and are the sons of Jupiter. They are 65 in number. They appear in the south, and when they appear, mankind will not be happy. Number 20, the comets that are neither very bright nor clearly visible to the naked eye, and that are long and white, are named Taskara Ketus. They are the sons of Mercury. They appear anywhere and are 51 in number. When they appear, mankind will feel miserable.
So far, just the sons of the moon are anything remotely good.
Right, exactly. Number 21, the comets which are of the color of blood of fire or fire and with three tails are named Kankuma Ketus. They are the sons of Mars and are 60 in number. Excuse me, I have to plug this in. Okay. They are the sons of Mars and are 60 in number. They appear in the north, and when they appear, mankind will feel miserable. The Ketus that appear as spots in the solar and lunar disks are 33 in number. They are named as Tamasa and Kilaka Ketus. They are the sons of Rahu. Their effects have been stated in the chapter on the sun. Number 23, the comets that resemble the flaming fire or a garland are 120 in number. They are the sons of Agni and are named Visvarupa Ketus. When they appear, there will be fear from fire. The comets that are dark red in color, without disks, presenting the appearance of Kamara, and with scattered rays are named Aruna Ketus. They are the sons of Vayu, the wind, and are 77 in number. When they appear, mankind will feel miserable.
So we're getting a theme here, right? A theme
right.
With the comets are most of the time not good thing, not a great omen.
Exactly. And I think it's, if you understand the planets, then you can understand how these Ketus apply. And right. I think that, that's where it becomes very intuitive. If you already know astrology, you can just say, oh, well, if it looks like this and it's like this planet, then I can see the effect of it.
Yeah, as with any, Rishi who is telling these comments, you can get a deeper principle from reading, okay, so it's this planet and it's the sun of that planet and here's what it does, right? It makes people feel miserable. So.
Exactly. Number 25, the comets that resemble clusters of stars are named Ganaka Ketus. They are 8 in number and are the sons of Prajapati. Those that are oblongular in shape are 204 in number and are the sons of Brahma. Number 26, the comets that resemble clusters of bamboo canes and that are as bright as the moon are named Kanka Ketus. They are the sons of Varuna and are 32 in number. When they appear, mankind will suffer miseries. The comets that resemble a headless trunk are named Kabanda Ketus. They are the sons of Yama and are 96 in number and are without disks. When they appear, there will be much fear all over Earth. Number 28, the comets that are white, possessing a single disk, are 9 in number. They appear in the 4 corners. Thus we have given an account of 1,000 Ketus. We shall now give a few particulars connected with them. Number 29. Vasa Ketu is a comet which lies with its head towards the north. It is of large size, glossy, and appears in the west. When it appears, there will be immediate deaths in the land, but prosperity in the end. Asti Ketu.
Neowise had its head always pointed towards the south. just for reference.
Okay, so when we get to that, we'll know that it's for this time. Asti Ketu resembles the Vasa Ketu, but if it appears of sharp rays, there will be fear in the land. Sastra Ketu also resembles the Vasa Ketu, but is glossy and appears in the west. And when it appears, there will be wars and deaths in the land.
Interesting.
So get this into your mind, you guys, because, you know, I'm sure there's going to, you know, we didn't know about Comet Neowise until the telescope Neowise found it, you know? So, I mean, these can come out of nowhere. And that's the quality of the comet, is that it comes out of nowhere. And that's why we have to pay attention.
And we hadn't had one. We hadn't had a comet since 1996, 97, since Hale-Bopp. Even earlier in the year, I had heard that there was going to be one in the spring, in April. There was one called Atlas that was supposed to be great, and it burned up. And I was like, oh, man. And then we didn't get to see it. And then next thing you know, Neowise popped out of nowhere. I didn't even know it until July.
Sure did. It sure did. And it made an impact.
Oh, yeah, it did.
All right, 31. Kapala Ketu is visible on new moon days. Its tail is the color of smoke. Its course lies through the eastern half of the visible hemisphere. When it appears, mankind will suffer from hunger, death, drought, and disease. Raudra Ketu is a comet resembling the dagger's end and is of a dull red color. It appears in the southeast and travels through a third of the sky and produces the same effects as the Kapala Ketu. Kala Ketu is a comet which appears in the west with a tail an inch in length, pointing to the south. As it proceeds more and more towards the north, it increases in length. So would that be Neowise?
This one is something different. Yeah. Well, ours appeared in the east. Yeah.
Okay, appeared in the east, but pointing to the south.
The south. Yeah.
Okay.
So this one goes all the way to the North Pole, like to the pole star, and it like keeps stretching longer and longer. It sounds like an interesting one.
Yeah. Okay, number 34. After touching the pole star or the constellation of Abhijit, it turns back, and after traveling one half of the sky, appears in the south. Number 35. When this Ketu appears, the country between Prayaga or Allahabad and Avanti, the forest near Puskara, the north, and the country of Devaka and Madhyadesa will perish. I have no idea.
So these are all ancient Vedic territories, right? So
right, Allahabad.
I think some of those are like in the Himalayas.
Right, the north. I know Allahabad would be the north.
Yeah.
Right. So that was more for his time, making more sense.
Right.
Okay. Number 36. The other countries will also suffer in several places from disease and from famine. The effects described will last for 10 months, according to some, and for 18 months, according to others. Number 37. Sveta Ketu is a comet which appears in the east about midnight with its tail pointing to the south. Ka Ketu is a comet of the shape of a carriage pole and appears in the west. Both the above Ketus are seen simultaneously for 7 days.
His descriptions are crazy and hilarious, aren't they?
I know. And they're so detailed. That's the thing. I mean, you can't just say, oh, there's a comet. There's going to, whatever. No, it's very, very detailed,
Yeah.
If number 38. If both should appear glossy, there will be prosperity and happiness in the land. If the Ka Ketu should be visible for over 7 days, there will be much more suffering from wars for 10 years. The Sveta Ketu is of the shape of the twisted hair and of a dull and disagreeable aspect. It travels through a third of the sky and then retraces its steps. When it disappears, it leaves only a third of mankind as survivors. Rasmi Ketu is a comet possessing a tail slightly colored like smoke. It appears in the constellation of Kritika. The effects are the same as those assigned to Sveta Ketu. Number 41. Dhruva Ketu is a comet possessing no fixed course, color, or shape, and appears anywhere in the heavens, in the sky, and on Earth. When it appears glossy, mankind will be happy. Oh,
Hey, we have another. Yeah. That's two. We got two.
To those whose death might be near, this Ketu appears in the several divisions of the king's army, in houses, in trees, in hills, and in household utensils. Well, that would be Kritika. Number 43, Kumuda Ketu is a comet of the color of the white water lily. It appears in the west with its tail pointing to the east and is visible only for a night. When it appears, there will be unprecedented happiness in the land for a period of 10 years. Oh, good.
Wow, nice one.
3 for 60. All right.
Yeah,
no, 3
right.
for 1,000. It's 1,000.
3 for 1,000. That's right.
Not a very good batting average. Okay. Number 44. Mani Ketu is a comet which appears for only 3 hours occasionally. It possesses an invisible disk and appears in the west. Its tail is straight and white, and it resembles a line of milk drawn from a human breast. There will be happiness in the land from the very time of its appearance for 4.5 months. Reptiles and venomous creatures will come into existence. Okay, we have 4.
You have 4.
Jala Ketu is a comet which appears in the west with a raised tail. If it is glossy, when it appears, there will be prosperity in the land for 9 months, and the world will be freed from all miseries. We have 5.
Hey, nice. We're on a roll here.
Yeah. Bava Ketu is a comet visible only for a single night and in the east, possessing a small disk. It is glossy. The tail is bent like that of a lion. There will be unprecedented happiness in the land for as many months as the number of hours for which it continues to be visible. If it should be fearful to look at, fatal diseases will afflict mankind. So that's kind of a 50-50.
Right. It's not without its detriment. Yeah.
Right. Padma Ketu is a comet white like the stem of a lotus. If it appears only for a night, there will be joy and happiness in the land for 7 years. Okay. I would call that number 6.
Yeah.
Avarta Ketu is a comet of red color. It appears in the west at midnight with its tail pointing to the south, and it is glossy. There will be happiness in the land for as many months as the number of kasanas, or 4 minutes, for which it continues to be visible. So that would be number 7. Samvarta Ketu is a comet which appears in the west in the evening with a tail of the color of smoke and copper, extending to 1/3 of the sky, resembling the sharp end of a dagger. It is fearful to look at. Princes will suffer, supposed to be from wars, for as many years as the number of hours from which it continues to be visible. Those persons will also suffer in the star of whose nativity the comet appears. Omitting the benefic comets, we shall proceed to state the several princes who will perish according to the malefic comets, either dim with their tails, the stars of the various constellations, or appear to be in contact with the same.
So that, we'll stop there for a second. Yeah. So this is saying that wherever the comets dim with their tails, the stars, which is the nakshatras, of the various constellations or appear to be with the same, right? So wherever that comet obscures, or when I say crosses the ecliptic at one of the nakshatras, there's a territory which he says is attached to each one of those nakshatras, which is according to the Vedic lands and all that. But he says several princes who will perish according to the comets, right? So this is just giving us the theme of leaders, which if you look at Western astrology, that's the prominent theme, is like leaders and royalty and all that thing will be taken out and taken down, or revolutions happen during the time that the comets appear.
Right. Very good. Number 54. If the stars of the constellation of Ashwini should be dimmed by the tails or of appearance to be in contact with malefic comets, the ruler of Asmaka will perish. So again, that's an ancient kingdom. We would have to look that up. Yeah. If the stars of Bharani should be so dimmed or in contact with malefic comets, the ruler of Kiratas will perish. If those of Kritika, the ruler of Kalinga, will perish. If those of Rohini, the ruler of Surasena, will perish. Okay, so I want to inject something here. I think the way we can use the modern application of this is to look up the the birth date or the independence date of whatever modern country, right, and look where their ascendant or their moon is to see what nakshatra that's in, and that's how you can apply this knowledge. Would you say?
Yes, I would say that would be correct. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, we covered Aries in number 54. Now we go on to Taurus. 55. Right. If the stars of the constellation of Mrigashira should be dimmed by the tails of or appearance to be in contact with malefic comets, the ruler of Asinara will perish. If those,
so now that's where Neowise crossed, is at Mrigashira in Gemini. That's right. So I looked up where he was. Asinara is northern India along the Himalayas, kind of where we see Nepal now. And so right up there is kind of up towards where Kashmir is now, and there's a lot of tension going on between India and China for that.
That's right. So. You are right. And Mrigashira is, for people that are new to astrology, I'm always trying to speak to the new people because I don't want to go so above people's heads and make it so advanced that new people are like, I don't understand what she's talking about. Right. Mrigashira spans both Taurus and Gemini. So when
it's equidistant. It's halfway between halfway in Taurus, halfway in Gemini. Right.
So it was on the Gemini side. Comet Neowise was on the Gemini side of Mrigashira when it first appeared. Okay.
Exactly.
So if the stars of the we read through that. If those of Ardra, the ruler of the people subsisting by the products of water, will perish.
Interesting.
If those of Punarvasu, the ruler of Asmaka, will perish. And if those of Pushya, the ruler of Magadha, will perish. 56.
So it's not a great time to be a ruler of a country.
Right. Yeah. You don't want this going over your country's ascendant or moon sign.
Yeah.
If the stars of the constellation of Ashlesha should be dim by the tails or or appear to be in contact with malefic comets, the ruler of Asika will perish. If those of Maga, the ruler of Anga, will perish. If those of Purva Falguni, the ruler of Pandya, will perish. If those of Uttara Falguni, the ruler of Ujjain, will perish. And if those of Hasta, the ruler of Dandaka, will perish. If the stars of the constellation of Chitra should be dimmed by the tails of or appear to be in contact with malefic comets, the ruler of the Kurus will perish. If those of Swati, the rulers of Kasmira and Cambodia, will perish. It's fascinating to me to read these ancient country names, or kingdoms rather, because
it activates your interest in where was these things. I want to learn about this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Number 58. If the stars of the constellation of Vishaka should be dimmed by the tails of or appear to be in contact with malefic comets, the ruler of Ikshvaku and of Alaka will perish. If those of Anuradha, the ruler of Pundra, will perish. If those of Jaisha, the chief emperor, will suffer. If the stars of the constellation of Mula, this is where we have to pay attention for Lebanon. If the stars of the constellation of Mula should be dimmed by the tails of or appear to be in contact with malefic comets, the rulers of Andhra and of Madra will perish. If those of Purvashada, the ruler of Benares, will perish. If those of Uttara Ashada, the rulers of Yadheya, of Arjunayana, of Sibi, and of Keda will perish.
Dang, look at that. Look at Uttara Ashada taking out 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
Okay,
So, and
that's
people
good to
in
know.
India will probably get a lot more out of these ancient, ancient names. They're going to be able to reference it. And so I'm
And
sure
Vishaka had 2 also. That was just something I noticed as we were going through. Vishaka had 2, which makes sense because it's ruled by Indra and Agni. It's the only nakshatra with dual rulership from 2 deities. Okay.
right. And
But,
also our friends from India, if you want to email us or make comments about these ancient kingdoms, that would be great. About what.
And please forgive us for our pronunciation.
Yes, please forgive me. I'm doing my best here.
I know, right? Yeah.
Okay, number 60. If the stars of the constellation of Shravana should be dimmed by the tails of or appear to be in contact with the malefic comets, the ruler of Kikaya will perish. If those of Dhanishta, the ruler of Punjab, will perish. Well, hey, we got something that's
Right,
still
I knew that one. Yeah.
Okay, if those of Shatabishak, the rulers of Ceylon, will perish. Well, Ceylon would be Sri Lanka, right?
Okay.
If those of Pudrabhadapada, the ruler of Bengal, will perish, and we know where that is. That's north eastern India. If those of Uttarabhadrapada, the ruler of Naimisa, will perish, and if those of Revati, the ruler of Kirata, will perish.
Okay.
And we have 2 more. If the tails of the comets should be crossed by the fall of meteors, there will be happiness in the land. Hey, there's a number 7. If there should be a fall of rain at the time of the appearance of a comet, mankind will be exceedingly happy. So that's really situational.
It would be, yeah.
Where you are on Earth at the time that you saw, if it's raining where you are.
And how would you know there's a comet if it's raining?
Precisely. Right. You'd have to have your eyes.
You have to be tapped in, right? Yeah.
Right. But the people of Kola and Avaganya, as well as the white men, the infidels, and the Chinese will suffer. Oh, well, that's interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
We're saying, India and China are not getting along right now.
Right.
As usual, but now right now it's really bad. And then the last one, number 62. The rulers of the countries to which the bent tails of the comets point, of the countries in the direction of which the tails of the comets extend, and of the countries corresponding to the several constellations as described above, with whose stars the comets might appear to be in contact, will triumph over their enemies and be happy. So there's a number 7.
Right. So I mean, this came from 500 AD, right? So it was like everybody was fighting at that time. There was wars all over the place, and so the omen of the comet was someone's going to triumph in battle and defeat that person, and likewise, right? So that's the context in which he's talking, right? And he's relating these omens to.
Right, and we have to remember the the role of the astronomer or astrologer, because they were the same at the time,
right,
was to be at the royal court and was to advise the king.
Exactly, yes.
So this is, what we consider mundane astrology really is the original astrology, because this was, originally used to help the kings understand how to rule their kingdom.
Right, and so anytime there was something that happened, the king would go, what does that mean? And it's his job to interpret the omen, right? So that's what he's doing.
So I just want to show, this is a beautiful picture of a Sedona that a friend of mine, Heber Lopez, took. And so I have 3 of his pictures that are here, but you can see how gorgeous that is. And
Nice
here,
picture.
yes, it's capturing the color of the sunset, but here you can really see the color of the comet, I think. So just some stuff that I compiled. The recently discovered comet called C2020 F3, also known as Neowise, after the NASA telescope that discovered it, will make its closest approach to the Earth on July 22nd in sidereal Leo. So that's the closest approach. It actually began, like you said, in Mrigashira on the Gemini side.
Right.
And also just a note about the name, it is named after the telescope, you guys. This is
Right.
not, Neowise is not a name that was given to it because of the qualities of the comet. We didn't know what the qualities were, but I think it's very interesting that, you know, Neo means new, wise means wisdom, and the colors, as we'll see, refer to this. And I really think it's about a new wisdom that humanity needs to embrace.
And Neo in the Matrix was the one who defeated the Matrix, right? Yes. Yeah. Got to add that one in there.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I won't
And
say
so
it.
you're calling it sidereal Leo, which is, you know, if we were to look up, we would see Ursa Major, right? Which is attached to where you would extend to the ecliptic longitude of Leo, right?
That's right. And just for those that do Western astrology, you know, sidereal is the real-time position of the stars and the planets. So when you're looking up at the sky, that's the sidereal zodiac. Okay.
Exactly.
And that's what we're using to gauge these positions. Western tropical zodiac, which pushes everything forward about 23.5 degrees or so to align it with the seasons. So it's not quite as accurate for things like this that I've found.
Yes.
Okay. On the day, the comet, which takes 6,800 years to complete one lap around its orbit, will be at a distance of 64 million miles or 103 million kilometers while crossing Earth's outside orbit. On July 3rd, the comet was closest to the sun at 43 million kilometers. And on this day, the comet cruised inside Mercury's orbit, and due to its proximity to the sun, its outer layer was released, creating an atmosphere, referred to as a coma of gas and dust from its icy surface.
Yep.
So that's how it gets its tail.
Right.
So here's the path, and this is what we've been talking about. You can see down here how it started in sidereal Gemini, and it was about July 1st was when it became visible. And
The third, fourth was when most people started saying, I can see it, right? That what you're saying is like people that were in dark skies with the equipment, they were spotting it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And so that would be about right here. And so you could see how those little tails are flickering, and that's when we could, with our visible naked eye, could see it.
Right.
And then
and you can see the head pointing to the east, right? Because if we're looking at Gemini and then Leo, that path is east, right? So we're head pointed east.
Okay.
And towards the south, right? Because if we're looking at it right now, north is up on the screen, south is down on the screen.
Right. So the brightest or the closest to Earth, they said, was the 22nd, right?
Right.
But personally, when I felt it in my chart, was about the 16th.
Yeah.
And that's when it was entering Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that was when I was like, what the heck just happened? I know the sun just went into Cancer, but good Lord,
Right.
something completely out of the blue struck my chart. And I said, Casey, what happened? And you're like, well.
Right. And if you were just looking at the chart, right, and all of us astrologers were looking at Vedic astrology and we're going, okay, we just went through May when we had all those retrogrades, and then we hit the solstice and the eclipse, and it's like,
and the Kalasarpa yoga, like,
right, it's like, we're like, July is going to chill out, right? July and August, it looks like we're going to chill out a little bit, and then no, what's happening, right? Comet's happening. That's what's happening.
Yeah, and really, it took Casey to unpack this for me. So that's why I was like, oh, we've got to talk about this because you're the only one talking about it. But as you can see, so for me, it was the 16th, and then the 22nd was the closest. And then the last it was visible was about the 30th, right?
Right in there, yeah. Right in there, 30, 31st, yeah.
So according to the text we just read, it's a month per day that it's going to be in effect. And starting 3 weeks or so from when it was visible. So when it stopped being visible, it was actually around here.
Right.
Right.
Right. So I have the 23rd, 24th. Right.
Okay.
That's what I wrote down.
The closest to Earth was the 22nd. but then after that, it became less visible. And so, you know, looking at what happened in Lebanon, that was roughly 2.5 weeks later, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when things started to, the effect started to happen.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then this is from our vantage point on Earth, right? The way it's
Yeah.
actually moving in space is here. Look at this crazy elliptical
Right.
orbit. You know,
Yeah.
it's really beautiful, really. I mean, you have to say it's definitely something special.
Right. It would take a while to wrap your mind around all the geometry and physics that go into that. It's like, you know, it's always a nice math test when you're studying these kind of things, and it's like,
Right.
yes, I get to use my math, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and we see, I mean, Rigel, the star Rigel is down here, which was around the 26th. And, you know, Rigel is, you know, a star of kings. You know, it's a star, if you have it prominent in your chart, it can mean great wealth, you know, in Leo, right? It's royalty, so.
Yeah.
So this is the chart of the day that it was discovered, which was March 27th, 2020 at 1:07, and the seconds were actually 28.
So in the
ES
morning, right? That's a
Yes.
good thing about NASA nowadays, is they get you the exact moment it was discovered.
Exactly. And as you can see here, this was when it was discovered. And this, if we remember back to March, this is when all of the quarantines were started. Everything was getting on lockdown. Places were shutting down. Kids were home from school. And we have a Kala Sarpa yoga. And if you notice, the
And
sun.
the nodes are exactly on the galactic plane also.
Yes, Mula, the nakshatra Mula, coincides with what we see in the sky as the Milky Way. You know, when you're looking up and, you know, it's right next to it.
Yeah, so K2 would be where we'd look and you'd see the center of the Milky Way where the black hole's in the center. And then Rahu would be out if we were to just turn exactly 100 degrees around and look straight out at the galactic plane that way, we would see Rahu.
Exactly. And that's up here in Ardra. And what is Ardra? The teardrop. Tragedies. Things that make you cry.
Lord Shiva, right? That's what in his Rudra form is in Ardra. And then in Mula is Niriti, which is Kali, goddess Kali in her fierce form, right? So it's just a transformational section of the sky, and that's, you know, where the galaxy was born, right? So it's a lot of power in there.
At the fulcrum of this Kalasarpa yoga, we have the sun, and that's going to show up as significant when we finally see the comet, as we'll see in a few minutes. But also another thing about the Kalasarpa yoga is that it's moving towards the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And so this represents the serpent coiling its tail up, getting ready to pounce. This is more a Kalasarpa dosha. And when it's this way, from like here to here, it's more of a yoga, meaning of a more benefic form, because it's the tail uncurling and relaxing. So it can give you more beneficial, you know, destiny and karma and fate and all of that. But right now we've got, you know, it's curling up, getting ready to pounce.
Yeah.
Another beautiful picture from Heber. So I'll just go through this. So this is just some of the analysis, and then I want you to, you know, add your 2 cents in as I go.
Right.
It will be in effect for 30 months because it was 30 days that it was visible. Until
I would say 2.5, 3 years is what we were looking at.
Yeah, January 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in the United States birth chart, we are in Asadi Sati. Yeah, Saturn, and it's just, you know, when Saturn goes into Aquarius, you know, our moon's in Aquarius and Shatabishak, so that's going to be the middle point, and that's going to be next year.
Yeah.
So really, this comet covers the whole Sati Sati cycle, and I think that's very significant. This comet, Neowise, has two tails, both white, but some say one magenta and one yellow gold. And like what you're saying, from the naked eye, we saw it as white, but when the telescopes looked at it, it saw it as more blue magenta and yellow gold.
Right, the ion tail, which is the gassy one, is blue, almost looks blue. And then the dust tail, which had a curve to it, we learned that from the text too, was golden, right?
Correct. Neowise literally means new wisdom, suggesting that this is what the current worldwide crisis would need. Going back to our old life as if nothing had ever happened isn't a wise move for sure. And so, you know, the pandemic going on, things will never be the same.
Yeah. Since when did a great lesson feel good in the moment you were getting it,
right? Right. So the being itself of wisdom is our first clue. Concerning the color, there are two of them, as we can read on Wikipedia. The first tail's color is magenta and made of gas and ions, and the second twin tail is golden color and made of dust, like the tail of Comet Hale-Bopp. So not only the name refers to wisdom, but the colors as well.
Right, so Hale-Bopp was the last great comet that we saw in the northern hemisphere. They had a few down in the southern hemisphere, but this is the first one we've been able to see in the northern hemisphere.
Right, and like you said, in 1996, well, it was actually...
yeah, 1997 is when it reached perihelion, right, which is the closest, where it gets closest to the sun, and that's where the Western says that's a sensitive point in the chart, right? And so...
And like you said, that's when Princess Diana died. I remember that.
That August
was the day I moved here to Bloomington.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I was leaving. I had a conference in California, and I came back. And when I got off the plane, it was all over the news. Princess Diana is dead. And to me personally, it was devastating because I grew up in the 80s. I loved Princess Diana. She was like my idol. Anything she did, any book that was about her, I would just grab it. You know, that was just like, I thought she was a galactic goddess. I mean,
well, I had just returned I spent the summers with my dad down in Oregon, and I had returned back to Canada where I grew up. And I remember my mom on the couch watching the news just bawling. And so, yeah, I remember that day very well.
I can't watch any documentary about her and not just bawl. Yeah. I mean, she was out of this world. So. Mm-hmm. In fact, magenta and gold are colors of harmony, balance, spiritual development, and higher moral qualities. For this reason, it is the color worn by bishops, or at least a variant of it. So far, the Neowise comet seems to be a warning, a call for developing higher spiritual qualities. The comet was discovered in March, as we discussed, but it became visible only in July. You can spot it a few hours before sunrise from the northern hemisphere, facing northeast. This means that the comet became visible in the zodiac sign of Cancer, as we discussed. Okay, so
yeah, I remember watching it those first early July, getting up at like 4:30 in the morning, get downstairs, and then you'd see Venus rise up, and then you'd look north from there, and then you'd be like, you know, because the pictures like that look like it should be super blatant obvious, but you're like, is that it? Yeah, I kind of think I see it, but then you learn that those pictures that they take are image stacks, where they take over 60 seconds or something, they take 100 pictures or something like that, and then they stack them all together.
Right.
So in person, you're like, I think that's it.
Right. Well, I felt it. Boy, did I feel it.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the midpoint, July 16th. And like I said, that's when I started to feel, and that's also the day that the sun went into sidereal Cancer. And so this is where, in the chart of Washington, D.C., it became visible. So it was the 11th house of that day. So it started in the 10th, which is, you know, career, government, authority. 11th house, communities. Well, all of our communities have been affected by this pandemic.
Our leaders, right? Our leaders are the 10th house.
That's right. And then 12th house is foreign lands, but it's also in mundane astrology, the enemy at your back that you can't see, because the first house is the self.
Yeah, secrets, unconscious things that you don't notice. Yeah.
Correct. And then it ended up in the first house, which was, impacting the self, the head, the body.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we look.
Consciousness itself, right, in our identity.
Correct. And as the sun broke the Kala Sarpa Yoga, if we had gone back half an hour before this, because I set it to noon. I always, if I don't know the time of something, I always set it to noon and then just look at the moon chart, right?
Right.
But, if we'd gone back half an hour before, the Mars was at the fulcrum of the Kala Sarpa Yoga, and that's where it was for all three eclipses, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was noticing it's like, there's the Mars aspect again. Yeah.
Right. June 5th, June 21st, and then July 5th. All three of those eclipses had Mars at the fulcrum. And again, we have the curling up of the tail. Mars is war. And then what do? We look opposite Mars to see what's going on. And Virgo is health and healing. What's going on? The pandemic.
Right.
And then, and then we can't, forget that Pluto had just gone back into Sagittarius at that point in the fourth house of the homeland, conjunct, and this, this whole combination here is the downfall of spiritual leaders, but also leaders of any strong belief system. It doesn't have to be a religion. It can be politics. It can be, anybody who feels strongly about any movement, like veganism, for instance. I mean, that's a belief system, all of that is, it's like K2 takes away, it's loss and surrender, and it's surrendering the ego.
Right. It's disgust. It's disgust. And that's not it, right? Because K2 is trying to go, wake up, this is all illusion, right? That's what it's trying to do. It's trying to spiritualize us to figure out you're not this body, right? Precisely.
And Pluto is, it's, the god Yama, the god of death, but it's also the power of the small. And what is the power of the small? Well, it can be a nuclear explosion. It can also be a virus that can take you down.
Right.
So all of those themes became very prevalent, that we could really feel it on July 16th, and especially with a comet here, conjunct the sun.
And you just think about Cancer is our most sensitive point, for wherever that is in your chart, it's the most sensitive place of where we're just receptive, like we're still that newborn baby, just imprinting all the information, all the feelings, all the environmental influences.
Right.
That's what Cancer is. Just, we don't have any defenses up. It's just imprinting. The only thing we have is the defenses that buries it under our consciousness.
Right. And then opposite, we have Saturn retrograde and Uttara Ashara, which is ruled by the sun. So we've got this real symbiotic thing going on here between the sun and the comet and Saturn retrograde. And this year, December 20th, when Jupiter and Saturn come together, it's a point of manifestation. It's growth, it's change, massive change.
And so Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, all in Uttara Ashara. And if we remember from the text there, that was the only one that had 4 kings are gone from Uttara Ashara, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So it spans a lot of different countries and regions. Yeah. And then let's not forget, Neptune retrograde during this time. And like I was explaining to you before, when Neptune is not retrograde, when he's direct, he represents everything that we think of him to be, right? Which is illusion, mysticism, but deception, denial, deceit. And when he goes retrograde, what I personally have found is that the veil parts and we can see the truth. The truth is revealed. All of those things get reversed. Mm-hmm. So the things he was hiding before, he reveals when he's retrograde. And so this is, when the comet came down here into Leo, it would have been opposite Neptune retrograde.
And just on a side note, this this is around the time that Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend, got arrested, and all that with the human trafficking and young underage girls has a lot to do with what we refer to in the nakshatra of Mrigashira, right? Which is the story of Mrigashira is that Prajapati wanted to populate the world with human beings with physical flesh. So in order to do that, he had to fornicate with something and somebody, and because he's the creator, everybody else is his children, right? So the intention was just to make beautiful beings with Rohini, but Rohini was like, that's gross, no, that's inappropriate, and she went fleeing, right, to get away from the father's incestuous desire, right?
Right.
So
and look who's up here,
yeah.
Max,
yeah.
This is Ghislaine right here, Venus
yeah.
in Rohini, and on that day, conjunct the moon. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't make this stuff up, you guys.
Right.
You really can't, you cannot make this up. It just plays out like a book.
Yeah.
So, and then going back to this again, I mean, this is what I really saw on the full moon of just, a couple days ago, was dark agendas being exposed. And what's a dark agenda? It's somebody manipulating from behind the scenes. This is all dark agendas being exposed, from the very small to the very great. So now I want to take a look at what happened on Tuesday, August 4th. Something that really shocked the world, shocked me, shocked everybody's still in shock that we cannot believe this has happened. And I have, like I said, several friends in Lebanon who are keeping me updated about what's going on. And I came up with 2 dates for Lebanon to have significant to look at. And the first one is what they consider as their Independence Day, which was the end of the French Mandate after World War II. And it was October 24th, 1945. Now, I don't know the time, so I set it as noon. But look what we have here. Rahu and Ardra, Ketu and Mula.
Right.
So as we know right now, they are down here at 4 degrees. So
but still that galactic plane again, right? That point of Kali in her fierce form and Shiva in his fierce form as Rudra.
Exactly. And so I would say that when transit Rahu and Ketu were at 8 degrees, because you guys, they go backwards, right? So they've already hit this point of 8 degrees, and I'm not sure what the date is, but whatever this date was, which would be probably a couple months ago, is when all of this stuff started about the explosion. Because it just came out today, I saw in USA Today, it's starting to come out that they're thinking there was a missile that hit the ammunition that was stored at the harbor. That is now being confirmed in news reports. Now, when it happened, my psychic senses, my spidey senses went ding, 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 ding. This was planned.
Right.
Now, this was no accident. Nobody's going to be such a big idiot that they're not going to protect this much ammunition. This was. And also, I learned from my friends in Lebanon that on that day, when the explosion happened, they had just gone out of a 5-day quarantine that the country had put them into because of the pandemic. So everybody was in downtown Beirut. The kids were playing like that famous video of the bride. Have you seen it? Where they're showing her gown, and at the end of her gown or her
oh
white,
yeah, I did see that.
Right then is when the explosion happened.
Yeah.
So everybody was out and about. Somebody knew that they were out and about, and I think this was planned, and probably around whenever Rahu was at 8 degrees 44 minutes.
Well, I read, I don't know if it's been confirmed and all that, but one of the political people was a casualty of the blast, and I was like, there we go, there's a leader who
Literally
was
going down. right?
There's a, yeah.
And also that day, the UN was to give their resolution of the killing of their Prime Minister Hariri from 2005.
Mm.
These are not coincidences, you guys.
Right.
Sorry. They're not coincidences. So we can just see here from this date, and then if we, like I said, I set noon as the time, and the moon was in Rohini. Again, we're back to Rohini, right?
Yeah. Right. Yep.
And
then they got Mrigashira there and Ardra. Yeah. So all that story is playing out.
And Uranus retrograde. I mean, what is Uranus? It's something happening suddenly, right? And
shocking. Yeah. Sudden shocking. Yeah.
And that day, Uranus was in Bharani.
Right.
And I also want to show that, I set this to Beirut, Lebanon for the time of the explosion. Mm-hmm. And so all of these planets, the dark agenda being exposed, political leaders' downfall was on their ascendant.
Yeah.
This is the self, and this is the head too. Yeah.
Yeah, all that was just rising, right? Exactly on the horizon, just coming into sight, right? Ketu in Mula, which is the, so the Shakti of Mula is the power to ruin and destroy, right? Mm-hmm. And then Purvashada is about the, there's a lot of war that happens there. And then
declaration of war. This is all.
Uttarashada is the permanent victory. And so that's all that has to do with that, right?
Somebody was after them. Now, the second and the seventh houses are Maraka houses, and we have Saturn retrograde in Uttara Ashada in the second house. Mm-hmm. It's also the house of money, but I mean, it's a killer house. This is significant. And then also Venus is opposite all this stuff. And this is what I was saying again for the full moon of Shravana that just happened on the 3rd, was that a lot of dark agendas being exposed concerning women. And again, this goes back to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Human trafficking.
Coming to me now, I think that she must have some kind of information against people that were involved in all of this.
She does. She's a close friend with Prince Andrew and with Bill Clinton. And there's a whole list of just elites that she was friends with and has dirt on, if they were involved with any of this stuff.
That's right. And so and that's what I came up for my personal predictions for people through the 12 signs. I was like, you got to be careful of women that are going against you, because women do not fight the way men do. Men will have a duel, they will fight it out, and then they'll go have a beer. Right. Women don't do that. Women are passive aggressive, and they will get you from behind, and it will take you months, if not years, to figure out what's going on.
The poison in your drink, right? Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a much more covert operation with women when they're going against you. So that's something I think is significant.
Right, when you don't have the physical advantage, you have to take the psychological advantage, right?
That's right, or the spiritual in the form of black magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is another day that's significant to them. They don't consider it their Independence Day because the French military was still there. But it's May 23rd, 1926, and this was the Lebanese Constitution Day. Now, if you notice, it was 18 and a half years before. And look at this. Rahu and Ketu were still in Gemini and Sag.
Every 18 and a half years, yeah.
And Punarvasu, which is the return of the light. So that's good. But Purvashada, declaration of war.
Yeah.
And so we have Ketu in this chart closer to Jupiter.
Yeah.
Which are the leaders. And Jupiter expands anything that he's with.
Mm-hmm.
And their moon is in Hasta on this day. And that would have been opposite that Kalasarpa yoga.
Right.
But opposite Mars. I mean, just within, well, it's not a tight orb, but I mean, it's within 5 degrees, really.
So we've learned if you're living in Lebanon, you set your clock to the next time the nodes hit the galactic plane, right? So
18 and a half years from now, don't be there, okay? Please, please.
Go on a vacation, yeah, 18-month vacation.
I keep asking my Lebanese friends, please move over here, please. And everyone's like, I can't leave my family. I can't leave my parents. You know, my parents don't want to leave. And like you pointed out earlier, look at this. The day of the explosion, Mars was at 2538. And in this day, Venus was at 2528.
Yeah, exact, right?
Exact, with Uranus, the planet of sudden things.
Yeah, sudden and shocking.
Sudden and shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then again, you know, fifth house. Well, fifth house is children. I mean, it's our creative projects. It's also speculations, though, right? It's like gambling.
Well, we would do fourth house because we don't know the exact time, right? We would measure it from the moon, right? Yeah. So the fourth house would be the homeland. Homeland, right?
Correct. I'm sorry.
Strike to the homeland, yeah.
That's right. That's right. And again, on the day of explosion, also Mars is giving his fourth and strongest aspect to Rahu.
Yeah. And onto the moon of the Constitution. Yeah.
That's right. So
opposition. Yeah.
All of these things are adding up to. I really think that the whole sex scandal that's going on with Maxwell has something to do with this. Leaders being exposed.
Yeah.
The dark agendas being exposed. The cabal is coming down, and
you know, there could be a force that isn't official law, but they're coming down on these people from, because when you have the badge, you have to live by certain rules that the elites have proven don't apply to them, right? So I think what's happened is that a force has been established that is not going by the laws. They're just taking these people out because they've been proven guilty. Yeah.
Right. And on the flip side, the people don't want to be exposed that have been involved in this. And so they're trying to cover every trail they can.
Distraction. Right.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that has not been discussed. So I think unveiled that here.
And that's just a big thing about especially Mrigashira in Gemini, right? Because think about Gemini is about variety, about all sorts of different things, different conversations. And so a big issue with Mrigashira Gemini is just ADHD, right? Where just show something shiny over there and they won't pay attention, right? So just put the smoke and mirrors, and then, that's something that we all are guilty of in modern Western society. Is like, I have a 10-year-old daughter and her attention span is about 5 minutes, right? And we're the same way, right? It's just, we can't hold our attention on anything, even the next thing, it all just gets swept under the carpet. Nothing ever gets digested, right?
Right.
And if you just think about Rahu as the head that always eats and never digests anything it eats, right? So that's what's happening, is the next thing, and never going, what are the implications of all these things? How we need to sit and digest with this, and then we'll go then the wisdom will happen, right? The new wisdom.
Exactly. There you go. You wrapped it up, Casey.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also I would say, the new wisdom is no more war.
Right.
This is what Chief Golden Light Eagle says. He says the earth belongs to the grandmothers because the grandmothers don't want war. We know that all children are our children,
Mm-hmm.
It's an unconditional love that we all need to develop our inner grandmother, and learn that war is not the way,
And the goal of all the Vedic sciences is self-realization, right? And if we put our attention on that, which is not just understanding our physical body or our psychology, but understand the essence of who we are that's trying to come through us, right? And if we could just put our attention on that, then there's no need for all this chaos and disaster, because once we realize that, oh wait, this isn't real, right? The real thing is trying to come through me. And when you do that and you share that with the rest of the world, there's no need for any wars.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, maybe humanity will get there in a few thousand years. I won't be here. I'm not coming back.
It's not that we can't, it's just that it's inert, right? There's inertia that we have to overcome to get there, right? And the inertia is that all this that we're paying attention to seems very real when it's not.
Right. It's very transitory.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Casey, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thanks for having me.
Honored, and I'm so happy that we had time to do this. And I'll put the link to your website below so that people can check it out and book a reading with you. And yeah, so thank you very much.
Thanks for starting the conversation about comets. Hopefully other astrologers will pick up the baton and we can all just get this thing started again and reignite the ancient wisdom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Namaste.
Namaste. Thanks, Katja.